Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Today, I thought we would do another mixed haul. I found a bunch of stuff all quite quickly where it was dry for a while when it came to thrift stores and online on, you know, Facebook Marketplace or whatever, right? But I went out yesterday and today, and I just found a bunch of stuff. It was quite awesome. So I thought maybe I'd show it to you. I don't think it'll be a too long of a video, but so let's get to it. All right. So let's do some books. Okay. So I found this one yesterday. Nice hardcover edition of The Best of Lewis Carroll, which basically is, he's known mostly for Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, another Alice book, but he also had some other writings, basically The Hunting of the Snark, A Tangled Tale, Phantasmagoria, Nonsense from Letters. So basically, you have his main two books, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, and then you have his other stuff, and all basically a nice edition with illustrations. So that's pretty cool. So I picked that up. I found that for $4. The only problem is I didn't notice when I picked it up that it's got a rip on the back. So I'll put it in Mylar and make it look nicer, and I should be able to sell it for maybe $8 or $10. Right? So yeah, it's nice edition. Maybe I'll keep that actually for a bit, because I started a book reading with my son. My son spends way too much time on a tablet or in front of the TV watching YouTube videos of miscellaneous crap. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm old, so maybe it's not crap to younger people, but he could sit in front of the TV and watch like 2, 3, 5 minute videos of people doing stupid crap on YouTube, right? Just for clicks or whatever, right? And it gets irritating to be sitting on the chair and having to be bombarded by all these videos that, anyway. So I said, and he didn't. I would read to him when he was younger, and I thought maybe he'd pick up reading because of it, but I don't know, maybe it's more of a girl's thing to read when you're young, because I didn't read when I was young either, and most of my friends didn't read either. I didn't pick up reading until later on, right? So, but like I said, he spends too much time on his tablet or on the TV. I got to curtail that, otherwise it's just going to get ridiculous, right? So I started a book reading club with him where he'll read books, and each book that he reads, if he reads it within a week, I'll give him $10, and if he reads it later than a week, I'll give him $5, right? So, and I said, right now he gets money from us, but we put it in the bank for him for later on when he gets older. Like we have an education savings for him, and then he's saving it for as well with himself. So I told him that this book reading thing, the money that he earns from that, he can buy, within reason, whatever he wants. I mean, I'm not going to let him go to the store and buy like $40 worth of candy and try to eat it all, right? So, but within reason, I'll let him spend that money as he so chooses. So hopefully it'll give him an incentive to read, because me forcing him to read would be, I don't know if you realize this, but as a parent or even as a child growing up, when your parents force you to do something, you hate it, right? But two things occur with it. Either you get a really distaste for it and then you never return to it, or when you get older, you get a nostalgic kind of a view of it, and then you go into it. So maybe your parents forced you to play the piano when you were a kid and you didn't like it. You wanted to be outside playing with your friends or something, and they forced you to take piano lessons, and then so you got good at it, and then you got older, and then you left piano lessons, and you said, I can hate the piano. I don't want to play the piano. I don't want to be near a piano. But then, you're like, you're 30, 35, and you go, I remember those pianos. Then you end up getting a piano or a keyboard and start playing around with it when you get older. So it's not really a waste, right? So I figured maybe get him to read. Maybe he'll pick up reading later on as a pleasant thing because he'll remember it like he earned some money when he was a kid, right? So the school will give him books as well, but on the side I'll have him read as well, so he's not spending so much friggin' time on that tablet just playing Roblox or watching YouTube videos. It's like, if you're going to watch a YouTube video, watch something that you're going to learn about. And he does. Occasionally he'll watch science videos and things like that. But most of the time it's just random stupidities from YouTube creators that, have nothing to do with nothing, that are trying to be funny or whatever. But anyways. All right. So maybe I'll keep this book and it'll be one of the books that he reads. Now, I had a book. I'll put it up here. It's basically the early, it's a biography by Winston Churchill, put out by the Folio Society, and it's his early memoirs, right? And I had it up on Kijiji. I found it in a thrift store for, I think it was $4. So I don't know if you've ever seen Folio Society books. All right, they're really nice. They have a really nice book, and then they usually have, it's like a hard cardboard slipcase over it to protect it, right? They're really beautiful now books, right? So they're very popular. So you can usually sell them, like if you buy them new, you're paying $60, $80, sometimes $100 for them, and you have to import them from England or whatever. So when you find them on the secondary market, it seems to be out of the three main like higher class books, you have like the two leather bound, like the Franklin Library and the Easton Press. The Easton Press is still around putting out leather-bound editions, but the Franklin Library kind of went out of business back in, I think it was like 77, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. It may have been later. Anyways, but the Easton Press has been still putting out, and so the higher, the more expensive books, the really nice books, are those in the Folio Society books, but I seem to find Folio Society books quite more frequent than I do a Franklin Library book or an Easton Press book, right? So, but they're gorgeous books, all right, and they're really easy to resell if you price them reasonably. If you price it at $80 or $70, you're not going to, I mean, you may have to wait 2 years before you sell it, but if you price it at, let's say, $25, right, when new, you're spending 50 or 60 for it, you'll sell it really quickly, right? So anyways, I had it up for $25, the autobiography of Winston Churchill, and this guy wanted it, and he was willing to trade me a bunch of stuff to get it, and I don't like really trading, because what it means is I don't want an even trade, let's put it that way, because it's not even, right? So when I sell something, right, if I'm buying something off of a person that I'm not going to add it to my library, but I'm going to resell it, I'm going to want to spend maybe 25 to 30% of what I'm going to sell it for. So if I think I can sell it for 10, I'm not going to want to buy it for more than $2 or $3, right? And if people trade with me, all right, that markdown they don't like, right? They'd rather trade price for price, right? And what's the point? If I put up an ad, let's say it takes me 10 minutes to put up an ad, take pictures, do a nice layout of the pictures, do a write-up of the book or whatever I'm putting on, right? It takes like 10-15 minutes to do a nice ad that you'll sell something easier if you just, take a picture and put a whole bunch of crap and then take a picture of it and say for sale, and then you just list 20 or 30 items in the ad. You won't sell something as quickly, and when a person buys one item, then what are you going to do? Put a line over the image? It just looks bad, right? So people have a tendency to avoid those ads. So you'll see those ads up for long periods of time, right? Because the person's too lazy to put them up, individually. Like he'll put up 20 bucks and then give individual prices for it and expect that somebody's going to pay the same price for that as somebody who put up the individual ad, right? Anyway, so I'm digressing, but point is that he wanted that book, that folio book, and he traded, and I wasn't going to trade tit for tat because I spent 15 minutes putting up the ad, and now I'll have to take it down, and then whatever he trades with me, I'll have to put that up, so it's just a waste of time. If I give him something worth $25 and he gives me something worth $25, well, I just put up one ad, and then I have to delete it, then put up the ad of the book that he gave me, which is another 15 minutes of my time or whatever, right? So it's not worth it. The only way I'll trade is I'll trade whereas it benefits me to the point where it's worth my time, right? So he traded that one book. He traded this really nice edition of the 101 Dalmatians. Okay. Right. It's a really beautiful book, children's book. So these are really, really, really nice editions. All right. So this I would sell for the same price as I would sell the Winston Churchill book, right? But then he also gave me this one, all right, which is a history of England. So the Folio put out, I think it was like 10 volumes. I think it was 10 volumes, but they didn't put it out in one box set. They put it out in individual volumes, all right? It was like the history of England in 12 volumes or 15 volumes or 10. I can't remember the number of volumes, but this is volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is volume 9 in the collection, right? See, each one, when you look at it, will say the history of England on the top, and then it'll have this blue square to it, and it'll tell you what this specific in the history of England is about, all right? And then it'll do an asterisk underneath. So you'll have, I think the first volume has no asterisk, but the second volume will have 2 asterisks, the third volume will have 3, right? So they're sold individually, they're not sold as a group, all right? So people like to go around and collect them to get all of them, right? And they'll find one and they'll buy them individually because it didn't come. See, the problem sometimes is when you're selling something. Let's say you have the individual books of Sherlock Holmes. All right, so there's like 3 or 4 of them. Like there's the Return of Sherlock Holmes. There's a Study in Scarlet. There's the Hound of the Baskervilles. Right? There's like 3 or 4 volumes of main stories, but Doyle also wrote a whole bunch of shorter fiction involving Sherlock Holmes. Right? So if you have these individual volumes and you're selling them individually of the Sherlock Holmes books, they don't sell really well. But if you have the complete Sherlock Holmes in one edition, that sells really fast. All right, so it's because they can get it that way. All right, so if you have like individual Shakespeare's plays, people will pick them up occasionally. But if you have the complete works of Shakespeare, that sells really quickly, right? They just have to buy one book and then they get everything, right? And because there's volumes of Shakespeare that have the complete works of him, people kind of avoid the individual ones, right? It's kind of like when you get a movie trilogy. If you're selling, let's say, Star Wars: A New Hope, a person may just avoid buying that because then they have to find the other 2 of the first trilogy when they could buy, for example, this, which has all 3 of them together in one thing. So because this exists, that reduces the purchasing of people for the individual movies themselves, all right, because they can get it in one shot, right? So with this, Folio was smart. They said we could put this in, let's say it's 10 volumes. I can't remember. I think it's 10 volumes. We could put all 10 volumes together in one package and sell it like that, but it's going to be really expensive, right? So how many people are going to buy it, right? So what we'll do is we'll break it up into 10 volumes and sell them individually. And if somebody wants a whole set, they can pick them up individually, right? And what happens is because of that, because they didn't sell a whole box set, I think they did put the first 3 volumes in a box set, but not all 10. I think, if I remember correctly, they did 3, like 1, 2, and 3. They put it in a box, right? But after, I don't think they did 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 9 or whatever, right? I think they just did the first 3. And after that, they just put them out like this, okay? So this will sell because it's an individual of let's say 10 volumes, but you can't get the 10 volumes all together. If you could get the 10 volumes all together, some people would just not buy the individual volumes. They would wait until they found somebody selling the 10 volumes and buy it all at once, right? So hopefully this will sell. So this he also gave me. All right. And he also gave me this, all right, which is a nice folio box set, 4 volumes. All right, so for example, Folio didn't decide to put these out individually in individual boxes. They decided to put it all 4 of them. If they did put them out individually as well, people would probably avoid it and just look for this box set, right? Now this box set goes for around $200 on eBay, if I remember correctly, but the condition of it isn't pristine. Whereas in this is like in pristine condition, and so is this is in really nice condition. All right, this you can tell it's been on the shelves for a while. If you notice, the person put it on the shelves and it was in the sun. All right, and if you notice, can you see how it's darker here and then it's lighter here? It means they had it somewhere in the sun where this is facing the sun. So maybe they had it on a shelf like this, I don't know, or maybe they had it on the shelf like this, but the sun was coming from a window over this way. Anyways, it's faded here more than here, but it's faded here as well, right? So it's somewhere in the sun. And if you look at the sides are still good, but they're pretty scuffed up. So this has been with somebody for a long time, and they've moved this thing around, right? And then if you look at the front, you'll get some scratches on the front if you notice it, right? Some discoloration scratches on the front. But it's still in good enough condition to sell. But I think he tried to sell these books, but he asked too much money for them, right? So somebody's really want it in order to buy it at the pricing that he had it up at the time. So maybe that's why he said he couldn't sell them. So he's going, fuck it, I don't want them anymore. How about I'll try to trade them for this book that I do want, right? So I'm either a sucker, okay, or he was just selling them for too much. So this I would sell, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 volumes. Usually volumes go for $50 or $60. Used, sell it for $20, so that would be $100. And this goes in really nice condition for $200, $250 on eBay. So I'll probably sell this maybe for $50, $40 or $50, and it should sell quite quickly. So I bought the Winston Churchill book. I found it in a thrift store. I bought it for $3.99, $4, and I put it up for $25, expecting to get $25 for it. And then I traded it in for something that I'm gonna probably get maybe $100 for, maybe $90 for. So it was a good trade. All right. So if I sell this stuff, right? I do keep these folio editions if it's of a book that I really enjoyed and I wanted to have a keepsake for it. But none of these are ones that I've read. So, but we'll see how it goes. All right. So those are the books that I got the other day, or the trade that I did from the guy. All right, let's do some movies. All right, so this I found today, which I just showed you, which is the original trilogy: A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. All right, it's all 3 volumes in one set. But funny thing is they did come out with 1, 2, and 3, which is the second trilogy. In a set like this, they originally came out with a slipcase over it as well. So this doesn't have the slipcase, but it had a slipcase over it, and they had 1, 2, and 3 as well in a similar thing with the slipcase as well. So you could buy all 6 of the films in 2 DVD cases, Blu-ray cases, right? Well, I guess the person that owned this before they gave it to the thrift store probably gave it to the thrift store that I found it at, right? But when they gave it, it seems that they had this one, which is episode 1, the DVD of it, all right? Because these are Blu-ray and DVD, so you get six discs, 3 Blu-rays and 3 DVDs. So you get a Blu-ray and a DVD of each individual movie. Well, this would be in the other set of 3, and I guess when he was watching, he put it in here and didn't realize it. So I guess when he gave the other one, I didn't find the other one with 1, 2, and 3 in it. But if I did, this disc would have probably been missing. So maybe somebody bought it already. And if they did buy it already, they brought it home and they saw that the DVD was missing out of it, or maybe they didn't care about the DVD as long as they had the Blu-ray. Anyway, so I already have this. I have all 6 of them in one volume. That nice one that shows, I think it's Anakin Skywalker in the desert. That one I have. I'll show it up here. So I don't really need this, so I'll resell it. But I found it for, I'll sell it for 15, and I found it for, I think, 7. So, all right. And then I bought this off of a dude. All right. Streets of Fire. Do you remember this? If you're an older person like me, remember this film back in the 80s? Well, the guy who directed The Warriors, which is a great movie, awesome movie. I've watched that movie at least 50 or 60 times, and I'll watch it again. It's one of those movies that I never get sick of watching. This is another one of his. Walter Hill is the name of the guy, the director, and he directed this film, which is a really cool. It's like a rock and roll. So it's kind of surreal and cartoonish, but with real action, like with real people, not cartoons or whatever, right? So it's kind of like surreal if you've ever seen this film. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. This is part of the, Shout Factory, the boutique Blu-ray company, Shout Factory. Well, they came out with a series, I think, of 40 or 50 films. I can't remember what number it is, of Shout Select. All right, so this is part of the Shout Select collection that they put out. It was number 16 in the collection. Wow! It scared the crap out of me. I'm trying to do a video.
That isn't funny.
Okay, go away. So this is part of Shout Select number 16. All right, my kids love me. They like to scare me, I guess. Anyway, so put out by Walter Hill, and it's a really, really, really enjoyable film. Right? It's kind of cartoonish. It's about there's this rock and roll singer. She's really popular. Then there's this gang that's led by Willem Dafoe. All right, young Willem Dafoe. He's got like this motorcycle gang, and they kind of crash this concert that she's in, and they go up on stage and kidnap her. Anyways, the girl from The Warriors, there's one girl in The Warriors. She's in this. She owns a diner, and she has a brother who's this dude who used to date the singer. All right, and so she sends him a letter saying, "Come back home. I need your help." And then she explains that this gang ended up kidnapping her friend or whatever, right, which used to be his girlfriend, right? So he goes about going saving her, but it's like it's quite fun film, and it's enjoyable to watch over and over and over again. So now I don't collect the Shout Select, but maybe you do, and this would be number 16 in the collection. I'm not sure. I think it's 40 of them, 40 or 50 of them. I don't know if they're continuing on with it, like maybe as a bit of a competition to, let's say, the Criterion collection or something. You know what I mean? They numbered them so you can collect them, right? But it's not enough of a collection to. The thing with Shout and Scream Factory, they go for some of the cheesiest films, right? And I don't need them in my collection because I'm never going to watch them. I watched them, let's say, when a lot of them came out, and I didn't like them very much. So why would I add them to my collection? So I probably won't collect that Shout Select series of Blu-rays or 4Ks or whatever, right? So that's that. Also found this Luther. You ever watch this series with what's his name? Idris Elba. Idris Elba. He's a British guy, and this is a British series. It lasted for 4 or 5 seasons, but each season was only like 4 episodes. I think one was 8 episodes, but I think most of them were just 4 episodes each. So they could put it in one package, the whole thing, the complete 4 or 5 seasons, right? The complete series, right? Anyways, he plays like a detective in London, like major crimes kind of detective, and each series, each season deals with like this one certain crime or whatever. Anyway, he comes across this criminal girl that they end up having kind of a relationship with. She's kind of a bad girl, but she's kind of helping him as well. And anyways, it's kind of I saw a couple episodes of it and I really liked it, but I couldn't find it to watch it. So when I saw this on Facebook Marketplace, I said, yeah, I'm going to go pick it up and I'm going to watch this. Right now, I'm watching Will and Grace, first, the original Will and Grace, 8 seasons, whatever. I'm watching those. So after that, I'll probably watch this. What else did we get? We got Schlock. I don't know if you ever heard of this film. It's basically a parody of, King Kong, the King Kong horror films or whatever. John Landis. It's John Landis' first film, so it's kind of a cheesy, low budget film. I think the budget for it was like $60,000 or $80,000. Anyways, Arrow ended up picking it up. John Landis, his greatest film is probably American Werewolf in London, but he's done a bunch of really good films, right? And I collect him as a director, but I've never found this one yet. So when I saw this on Facebook Marketplace, definitely wanted to pick that one up. All right, so I don't know how good it is. I haven't watched it yet. And then I also found this, which is really, 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 really rare. All right, it's rare to find Canadian cinema number one that isn't, if you want to find, let's say, a James Cameron film, you're going to find it. All right, he's a Canadian director, but he works in the United States, right? David Cronenberg, you can find his stuff. There's directors that move from Canada and they go to Europe or they go to the United States, and then their films become more popular and they're easier to get. But there are like homegrown films that are made in Canada before they end up going to, let's say, the United States or whatever, that it's just impossible to find half these films. It's just ridiculous. And maybe they came out in this is I don't know if you understand. If you're an American, you won't understand it. But if you're a Canadian, I think you'll understand it. It's like Canadian culture is there, but it's difficult to find because we're just overrun by American culture. Is it a bad thing? I don't think so. You know, we're like almost like a satellite to the United States anyways. They're like 10 times the size of us. So obviously a lot of stuff is going to bleed across the border, and their stuff is good, right? So it's enjoyable. Like Will and Grace or Friends or Cheers. Almost all my favorite TV shows are American TV shows, but I do like, let's say, The Beachcombers. I really liked The Beachcombers when I was young. I like to watch that show. Do you think I can find that show on DVD or Blu-ray? I can't find it anywhere. You know what I mean? Do you understand? So it's like, this is the thing about Canada. You can't find your own culture in your own country. It's like ridiculous, right? So, like I really like the show Nothing Good Too Good for a Cowboy. That only lasted like 1 or 2 seasons, but I'd like to find that on disc. But can I find it anywhere? I can't, right? So much stuff that's on Canadian television and Canadian cinema. Once you see it, if you want to see it again, you're never going to see it again, right? So what happens is there's this one company, they're called Canadian International Pictures, and what they do is they put out Canadian film, all right? And I think they distribute through Shout Factory or one of the American boutique labels, all right? Because when you go on their website and you click the movie that they're promoting right now, it takes you to, I think it's Shout Factory's website. And you can pick it up there or whatever, right? So anyway, so for example, here's Speaking Parts, all right? So this is a 1989 film by Atom Egoyan, and Atom Egoyan is probably my favorite Canadian director. And you can find some of his films because he made some films in Canada, but he also went to the States and made some films in the States. So he's popular enough of a director that people feel confident that if they put his stuff out on DVD or Blu-ray, that people will buy it. So probably his greatest film is Exotica, which is this one here, all right? And that one had a Blu-ray release, had a DVD release, but it also was picked up by the Criterion Collection, and it's number 1033, or I can't remember the exact number of it, but it was put out by the Criterion Collection. So you can find that, and I would highly suggest you find that film. It's an extremely good film, all right? But he did like The Sweet Hereafter, he did The Adjuster, he did a bunch of films, but he did some of these films in Canada before he became more and more popular, right? More famous, doing some American films or whatever, right? So this one is a Canadian film. It's called Speaking Parts. It came out in 1989, and the Canadian International Pictures put this out. It's number 15 in their series of films, right? So it's a nice Blu-ray edition. They cleaned it up. Basically, I didn't like it. So I go about, I find it, and I go, wow, an Atom Egoyan film. I haven't watched it. And I picked it up and I watched it. And I got the same feeling as I did with The Adjuster. I don't know if you watched The Adjuster. I didn't like that film either. But this one, it was okay, but it was you kind of sat down and said, like, what's the point of that film? It's like trying to tell a story, but the story is an uneventful story. Basically, it's about this guy who's an actor, who's played in a lot of films, but he's always been an extra in it. So he's had no speaking parts, right? So he had no speaking parts in the films. And he works in a hotel. He's like a maid in a hotel. But he also, his main purpose is he's making money for the hotel manager who has a system set up for him as a gigolo, where he goes, visits people that come into the hotel and, bangs them or whatever, right? So, but he also acts. So there's this woman that comes into the hotel, and she's a writer, and she's writing a film, all right? And so he notices the script in her room, and he leaves his actor profile, and he ends up getting picked up by her, and the director likes him as well, and so he's going to star in this film that she wrote, right? And then there's a girl that was in Exotica, actually, the girl in Exotica that plays the pregnant mom or whatever. In Exotica, she's in this film. She's also a cleaner in the hotel. She cleans the rooms, and she's obsessed with the actor dude, right? So, but it's like, I don't know what was amazing about the film, but I'm going to keep it because I collect Egoyan films, but I don't know if I'll watch it ever again. And I'm going to go and see what other stuff the Canadian International Pictures is putting out, see if I can find more of those, because that would be great. There's like a distributor of Canadian film. It's so hard to find Canadian. I'm still looking. It's been, I don't know, about 8 years now that I've been collecting, and I've got like 6,000 films or so. And there's one film that's called Cold Comfort. I've been looking for that film forever. It's never come out on DVD. It came out on VHS. It's never come out on Blu-ray, but it did come out on DVD. The problem is all the films, unless distributors think that they can get enough sales from them, if they came out on VHS, because let's say they hit the theater, and the 5 theaters that show Canadian film in all of Canada or whatever, right? Or maybe it was invited to Cannes or something like that, Toronto International Film Festival, got a screening, so it was popular enough that they put it out on VHS, right? Back in the day, let's say. But it doesn't make it to DVD, right? So a lot of the films, if you want to watch Canadian films, you still have to have a VCR to watch them, if you can find them, right? But Cold Comfort came out on DVD because it was a film, I think, in the 90s, if I remember correctly. So it had passed the VHS stage and was into DVDs now. So when it did get distributed, like there was another film that I found on DVD as well, that took me like 2 years to find, and that was Treed Murray. I don't know if you ever seen that film. Treed Murray was another one, or Blood and Donuts was another one that I found. It took me like 2 or 3 years to find that film, right? So Canadian cinema, I mean, good Canadian cinema, much of it, especially from, let's say, the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, that maybe hit VHS, maybe, but never hit Blu-ray. You're never going to find these films, and it's like, why not? Why can't I find these films, right? Same with TV shows. You can't find any TV shows. You know what I mean? I mean, CBC put out a lot of TV shows over the last 75 years, and can you find any of them? No. I'd like to find Bizarre. That was a CTV show. I'd like to find Bizarre. I don't know if you remember that show from the 80s, Bizarre. It's kind of like, with Super Dave Osborne. It's quite a funny show. I laughed at that show a lot. Now, I have been able to find, let's say, Brett Butt's Corner Gas. You can find that. You can find The Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara series, Schitt's Creek. You can find that, right? But can you find the Beachcombers? No. Can you find like half the stuff that was put out by CBC or CTV back in the 70s and 80s when I was younger and watched TV? No. Like, can you find Street Legal? Haven't been able to find Street Legal. How about Traders? I really like that show. That show was really good. Traders? Can't find that. You know what I mean? So, anyways, uh, that's me just bitching. All right. So speaking parts. So at least you could find speaking parts. All right. All right. So that's, and then I found this one as well, which is the old DVD edition of Spartacus on Criterion, number 105 in your collection. The original thick case, right? Which means you have a nice booklet in it, and you have two DVDs. One usually is the film, and the other is usually like a whole bunch of extras, right? So this is basically who is the star in this? Is Kurt Douglas? That's it. Oh, Kurt Douglas plays like a Roman slave that rebels against the Roman Empire, but you get like I think, don't quote me, but I think Thomas Mann, was it Thomas Mann that originally was directing it, and then they kicked him off, and then they brought in Stanley Kubrick. So Stanley Kubrick is the one that directed this, but it's not a typical Stanley Kubrick film because he was brought in after, and he didn't really have creative control of it, right? So he kind of like was a pinch hitter director for it, but it's still a Kubrick film, so it's still good. And Spartacus was a good film overall. Anyways, it was like nominated for a bunch of Oscars. I think Peter O'Toole won an Oscar, but I don't think Kurt Douglas won an Oscar. But I think it did win some Oscars. And I think Peter O'Toole, who plays, I can't remember who he plays in this. It's been a while since I've seen it. Anyways, I think was it Peter O'Toole? Peter Ustinov? I can't remember. Anyways, I think he won an Oscar for it. But now I didn't have this in my collection. I don't know if it's come out on Blu-ray. I think it has. But I have 105 now in the collection, so that's kind of cool. So that is all the cinema and those books. But then today I went to a Salvation Army and I found a bunch of books. All right. So I also picked this up today, which is another Criterion, but this one's a Blu-ray, and that's Seven Samurai. All right. So I actually had this already, but I had 2 copies of it. And the guy wanted to buy one of the copies off of it. So I said, okay, pick whichever one you wanted. And he picked this copy of it, not this exact copy, but this one. And then I looked at the other copy that I had, and it's like an Asian bootleg, and I didn't realize it was a bootleg. I thought maybe it was just like a European edition of the film, but it wasn't. It was a bootleg, and said, crap, now I don't have Seven Samurai anymore, right? So then I found this for $15. So I picked this up. All right, so now I have Seven Samurai. This is number 2 in the collection. All right, it's Akira Kurosawa's probably best film. All right, it's basically, the Magnificent Seven was based off of it. But basically, it's about 7 samurai. Well, they're Ronin or whatever, because they don't have a master anymore, and they're traveling, and then they end up in a village that gets attacked by some bad guys, and the 7 samurai decide that they're going to protect the village, and there's a big fight scene, swords flying everywhere. It's quite an enjoyable film, even if it's in black and white and it's from the 1950s. So enjoyable film. All right, so that as well. Okay, so then I found the complete poems of John Keats. This is a Penguin Classics. John Keats, if you remember, one of the great English poets from the Romantic era, second wave Romanticism. But he ended up getting tuberculosis and ended up dying when he was in his 20s, right? So there's not a lot of stuff, and this is basically all of his stuff in one volume, right? It has all of his poems, he wrote some plays as well. It has his plays in it as well. So I don't think I'll have trouble reselling this. Usually it's if you're taking English literature in school, which you end up having, John Keats is one of the guys that you're going to have to read. Not that having to read would be a bad thing, because he is a very good writer. So, all right, so that's the complete poems of John Keats. Also found this book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. The film starring Johnny Depp, and well, who's the other guy? Del Toro. What was his first name? Anyways, so this is basically Hunter S. Thompson's trip to Las Vegas uh, with a friend of his, and they're high on drugs all the time and everything. It's just a crazy book if you haven't read it yet. It's quite fun. It's part of his writing of what they call gonzo journalism, which kind of mixes fiction in with fact. So a lot of the stuff in this may be fiction, but also some of it's fact. You know what I mean? So, um, great writer. The film, Terry Gilliam, if I remember, directed the film. It was okay. I didn't like it a lot. Johnny Depp was kind of cool. If you like Johnny Depp's acting, he did a really good job acting. But I don't know the story. It's better in the book than it is the film. So I would suggest you read the book rather than watch the film. Um, and I found 1984 by George Orwell. As you know, if you've watched any of my other videos, I'm a big fan of dystopian science fiction. 1984 is, many argue, it's the greatest of all the dystopian novels, but I like Brave New World better. So if I was to list, let's say, a top 5 or a top 10 of those, Brave New World would be number 1, and 1984 would be number 2. Maybe Handmaid's Tale would be number 3. WE would be 4th. Fahrenheit 451 would be up there. Uh, what else? What other ones are there? I keep forgetting a lot of them. A Clockwork Orange would be up there. So, anyways, you get the point. If you haven't read 1984, you're sorely missing in your education. This is basically where the term Big Brother came from. You ever hear of that? Whenever the state decides to monitor you, everybody says, "Oh, Big Brother is watching you." Well, that's where they got it from. They got it from this book, right? It's basically about a guy named Winston who is like terrified. Uh, he doesn't like the society he lives in, where you can watch TVs, but they'll watch you back, right? And everything is under surveillance. It's like the big critics of London are talking about this even now because pretty much every corner in London, every street is under some sort of surveillance with a camera, right? So it's like 1984 is coming true, right? So um, another great American novel, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, about a black man who's accused of rape and ends up in court, defended by a white lawyer who thinks he's innocent, and you get to see full-on racism in this book, right? So it's quite an enjoyable read. And then I found something. So my son and I went to see the film The Bad Guys. Remember that, about the fox and the snake and the tarantula and everything? They're all thought of, these animals are thought of as bad guys, right? So they want to change their reputation by becoming good guys and saving people and doing good deeds, right? So it's quite a funny film, but it was based on graphic novels put out by Aaron Blabby, all right? There's like 20 of them, 20 volumes of them. I found the first 14 of them, so it's cool. So I'm going to read them all to my son, right? So they're quite funny if you haven't read them. And if your son is like 6 to 8, 9 years old, he'll really enjoy them. So would your daughter, probably. And you'll be laughing reading them if you want to read them to your kids. All right. So I found like the first 14 of the 20 volumes. This one's number 1. The Bad Guys. All right. So it's basically about a group of animals that are trying to change their reputation from being bad guys into good guys. But they have a hard time doing it because they're used to being bad guys, right? So they kind of fumble and anyways, it's quite funny if you haven't read them. And I also found 14 of Elmore Leonard's books. I don't know if you ever read Elmore Leonard, the American. Well, originally he wrote westerns, right? If I remember correctly, back when he first started, he wrote westerns, but then he went into crime fiction. That's where he made his name, and he's up there with like Agatha Christie or Arthur Conan Doyle, or another good one is Sue Grafton. If you haven't read hers, all the alphabet. true crime novels, that, right? You know, like Dashiell Hammett would be another guy, right? These are like the big names in crime fiction, and he is one of them. And I found 14 volumes. I think he wrote like 40 or 50 books altogether. Um, but I think there was a fan who had these books and read them, and then decided to not keep them and gave them to the Salvation Army. And I found 14 of them, and I went, cool. I'm gonna pick all 14 of them up, and what I'll do is I'll just do a big ad of Elmore Leonard novels, 14 of them, $5 each, or more like all of them for 40 or something. You know what I mean? Um, so it's cool. I mean, this person looks like they bought them all new. This one's like $9.99 new, so he spent like $150 on the books that he just donates them to the Salvation Army. So I don't want to pull out all 14 of the books, but basically that's. So I found a bunch of Elmore Leonard, a bunch of bad guys, some other books, some films, and a trade for Folio books. So it was a successful look. So I have some good films to add to my collection, but I think most of the books I'm going to sell, and hopefully make some money so I can buy some more films. All right, so that's all of it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. I would appreciate it. If you do, if you like this kind of content, basically this is what I do. I do books, music, film, talk about books, music, and film, and any other media. Sometimes it might be baseball cards, or it might be comics or whatever, but mostly it's books, music, and film, especially film, because that's what I'm really into collecting presently. And if you like talking that kind of stuff and me showing you stuff that you can get on the secondary market for a lot less than if you would pay for it new, then this is the channel for you. All right, so I'll talk to you in my next video. You have a great day, and bye for now.